Once a DJ is brought to you with the support of Vinyl Underground Record Store. Since 1993, VU's been shipping new and used underground house, techno, disco, hip-hop, soul and more worldwide from Northampton in the UK. They're your go-to store for upfront releases, repressed classics and deep digging for undiscovered gems, and they're a great crew to deal with who really care about the music and their customers. To show their support to the Once a DJ community, they're giving you 10% off your next order. Just head to vinylunderground.co.uk and use the code ONCEADJ10 at checkout, and you'll also get free UK delivery on all orders over £100. That's ONCEADJ10 at vinylunderground.co.uk.
Nice.
Before we get back to the show, I just wanted to tell you that outside of this podcast, I run a business called Remote Control. That's remote-ctrl.co.uk, and basically it's where I get to do what I love: audio and video production, design management, all of that sort of creative stuff. And the nice thing is, I don't do it alone. Over the years, especially through DJing, I've met some seriously talented people, from producers to designers to videographers and more, and we've built this little network where we can pretty much take on any creative project. So whether you need a podcast edited or a video produced or branding work or whatever, we've got you covered. It's honestly been one of the most rewarding things I've done, working with people I actually respect and enjoy collaborating with. So if you've got a project in mind or you're just curious about what we do, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk and let's chat. No pressure, just good creative work.
That was nice.
Welcome to the first live Once a DJ podcast here at Canopy in Derby. Thanks for having us, James. What's your website? Canopyonline.co.uk. Remember that, check it out. And thank you to DJ Hudson for the music. Save some claps for later, guys. Don't run them out. And we're here today with Illustrator and B-boy Dan Lish to look at his journey with DJing, illustration, how they've intertwined, and a bit more stuff about your personal journey, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and keep this to an hour, because I know live it's like a long time for people to be sitting around, and I mean, I could talk about these things all night sort of thing, but yeah, so let's kick off. And I know you've listened to quite a lot of the episodes, so you know the format, so I'll just really start with that's the right answer.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, and thanks to Colin as well, Velocity Press, for coming and bringing the books and putting the books out as well, putting out books around DJ culture, music and things like that. So yeah, let's get kicked off really then, and just talk about your early years really, and where the love for music came from.
Well, I guess when I was bouncing around on my space opera, this was in the 70s, in Suffolk, so it was really my mother that inspired me with her soul records, I suppose, and you know, I caught the bug. But I was very, very young then. I was sort of 7-8 years old. But I mean, when hip hop came into the picture, you'd get little snippets. I said in my book it was a bit like a glimpse of a tropical fish, that you were mesmerised by it, but you just couldn't keep hold of it. You know, it was very fleeting. So was it sonically or was it visually that it captured you first? It was visual first. It was the b-boy and it was the breaking, what the hell is that? And then it's when you're sort of like 13, 14 years old, you can't sort of compartmentalise things as well, and it's just in one big dynamic sort of splat in your face that you can share with your mates if they get into it as well. And so that really, it was again very fleeting, but it really hit hard, and the music started making sense as I got a bit older. So it's the electro funk era, you know. So it had peppers of rhymes. I remember when I was probably in my bedroom around my stepmum's doing a little Airfix model, and I heard sort of Melly Mel, you know, The Message, and I was like, what the hell is that? Because I'd never heard anything like it. And sort of Buffalo Girls as well with the video, and a lot of people claim that's a very influential piece, you know. And I was, like I say, I was very young, I was sort of 13, 14. And then because it was like a London overspill, it's a housing estate, it was London overspill, so there's a lot of young families from London.
So this was in Norfolk, right?
This was, I'm from Suffolk, so I'm bouncing around a bit. My dad's from Brooklyn, so he used to take me to the air bases a lot in Suffolk, like Mildenhall and Lakenheath. So I'd get little glimpses there that I couldn't really work out. But it was friends with that London connection as well that would come down, and you know, so it was a mixture of everything really.
So it's kind of like, I guess with those two things, that's quite a unique situation, that you'd have the American access with the air bases and then the London access.
Because a lot of the DJs there, and I don't know why they did this, but they'd come over to this country, and so the second-hand record shops, they'd be packed. I mean, I remember one of the big finds was my mate found the original of Bambaata's Death Mix, which was in just a little tiny shop in the middle of Suffolk somewhere, you know.
Right.
And that was quite a big deal. I mean, I can't remember the date or anything for that particular find, but these things stick in your mind because they're so fleeting. You know, they're very rare, so you hold them that much more. It's very precious, you know. I found people that were in the bigger cities, they were just a bit more blasé about it because it was surrounding them all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my take on it. That's my perception of things. And, you know, from the air bases, that my friends that had that London connection as well. You get older, you get a bit more money, you start, you know, I mean, I was buying tapes before vinyl. So you just got the bug, and everything else came with it. You know, Style Wars came out. I was a little bit late on Wild Style, the film, but these documentaries came out, and just you know, as a young boy with my friends, you know, it's amazing. You know,
you talk in your book a bit about, you mention bits about your ego and things like that in terms of how that helped you with or how that kind of made sense for you in terms of throwing yourself into the hip hop culture and b-boying and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the family situation was difficult. You know, I was stuck in bloody boarding school for a year, and then after that into a new town. Stepmother and my dad's relationship was always a little bit challenging. So, you know, wasn't in a really good place. But for the openness for things to come in, you know, it was I can't really explain it very well, but these things, it just happened at the right time. You know, I probably held quite a lot of anger from things in the past, so hip hop, without me knowing, was a good platform to express that. I could only figure that out decades later.
Yeah, of course.
So there was that sort of that b-boy sort of, you know, battle mentality thing, you know, or again, it was very egoic, and it just made sense then.
So was it kind of a bit of a release? It
was, yeah, and back then, you know, you're all like young lads really with a lot of testosterone, you know, and it was a step up to the plate and show and prove, you know, it's something to get involved. And it's not so much later on in years you'll get people that absolutely love hip hop, but they had the money to buy it, you know, products, you know, I'm just being hypocritical here, but you know, so you probably get a lot of stories like this. I mean, it wasn't better, it was just different, you know. You just have to, you really had to step up to the plate, you had to pay your dues a lot, and that's from the sort of the era that I was from. Yeah. You know, even when it came to bombing and you know, getting a spray can, and you know, I was very much into all the elements, but I just couldn't rhyme. I sounded like an idiot, so I just I gave it a go, but it was so bad. Yeah.
I've been there myself.
Yeah, well, I think we all have, haven't we? Really, it's like, you know, it's terrible. So jokingly, it was between, you know, me and one of my mates, and I just thought, no, this is just really bad. Well, plus I felt really uncomfortable.
Yeah. So in terms of the other elements, then what was the primary one for you? Was it the breaking or was it graph?
Yeah, it was the B-boy thing first, and then with the music, and then because it came, in England, it came as a nice little package thanks to the Zulu sort of, Bambata tours and stuff like that. So we didn't have that lineage that I was aware of, like they had in America, especially New York. I mean, people that picked up spray can weren't necessarily into, obviously, rap music or whatever. They were just whatever. It was just, this is the late 60s, early 70s. Obviously, it wasn't really around then, apart from the very inklings of, the foundational stuff. So, yeah, it was in that order. I really got into, I did later on, this is probably in the early 90s, stuck in Portsmouth for my art college years. Academically, I didn't do very well, but I got in there with the standard of the work, which was great. But there was hardly any scene there again, and you really depended on overseas students, the Afro-Caribbean parties or whatever, to make something happen. And there were some locals that were diehards as well, and obviously you got the second to none B-boys who I met in the early to mid 90s, especially Adam, who, when I found him, we just practiced all the time. So there was that true school resurgence as well in the early 90s, because people that were really into it and very passionate, you could see the corporate tentacles getting into it a bit more. And even back then, you need to change your lyrics to sell more units, and I was just not into that. So there was a big resurgence of the underground, or the roots, the ethos of all this stuff, and it was I guess I was quite nerdy and diehard about it, very ADHD about it, and it was just the resurgence of the B-boy thing as well, which was great.
Do you remember a lot from the sort of mid-80s? Because you had things like Morris Minor and the Majors that were capitalising on it. And then I feel like Weetabix had some graffiti.
Well, you had all the gimmick,
stuff.
all that stuff. That's right. I mean, I love that Weetabix because that was that Artful Dodger that did that.
Right.
Which I eventually met up with him, pioneering sort of graph artist. And that was around the same time as Goldie was doing his thing as well, before he was doing his drum and bass and that. Sorry, what was your question again?
I was talking about the way that the mainstream kind of tried to capitalise on hip hop culture in the mid-80s and stuff.
The Guinness advert, I think there was someone doing a windmill or something like that in there. There's a break-in in the Guinness advert, which is still sort of it still grabbed me as a young boy. But there was lots of little mini documentaries that were very, and I can't think of them at the moment, but they really helped. That was DJ Cheese, Word of Mouth Crew. I remember there was some little documentary live gig, and that was great. But it was so thin. And we had people we couldn't really get the pirate radio stations, and I'd have to sort of erect all my metal clothes hangers around the window just to get a reception of the London Pirates, like Mike Allen, Capital Rap Show, which was, you would just hold on to that tape very, and it sounded shit. It was really bad quality, but because it was new and it just sent you out into the cosmos with my imagination anyway.
Yeah.
And it did help, I guess, with my dad being, a New Yorker as well, because, he was in the house with me, and although his accent sort of went a bit Norfolk-y, Brooklyn Norfolk accent, a good combo.
Do you think your dad being from there gave you a bit more of a sense of purpose around connecting with the culture?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Even though I didn't know it then, it makes sense now, yeah. Yeah, because I did go out there in 77, but I was only 6. So, and I remember, the subways being hot as hell. And I saw Star Wars, which was amazing. I just remembered little bits of that. We went to Brooklyn to see that, but I was only 6, and these are the only little memories that I had. And I threw up in the back of the taxi cab, and he told me shh. And so we snuck out, paid the cab driver, and left it there.
Oh,
it's awful.
Look,
straight out of the plane.
So when you were at school, then was Was art something that you kind of found you had a natural talent for? Like
Yeah, because my mum, on my mum's side of things, she used to talk about this chap called Sir Joshua Reynolds that I never really heard about. So he's like the seventh great uncle or something on my mum's side, and so he was painting huge portraits and oils back in the day, and this is, the dates are gonna, she's probably gonna slap me for this, but 1700s or something like that. He was like, so it comes from my mum's side. My dad had big mechanic hands, Tommy Dick fingers, pulling apart engines and putting them back together again. So the artistic side was on my mum's side, and so yeah, they were great. They would, get me my pens and my equipment when I was really young. Or my dad would come back with a big roll of wallpaper, and I would draw on the other side.
Right.
And, so it was cheap and cheerful. He gave me a rotoring pen that is a mapping pen, but you got to hold it upright. So that made me become quite tight. So I had to sort of back engineer what I was doing and get looser, because they had a very incredibly thin nib that you had to hold upright, and it just made me really slow and tight. So I had a lot of unlearning to do later on, but it is what it is, it's all good experience.
Yeah. Does that relate to them with graph? Because it's sort of like, because you've got all your different caps and things like that, don't you?
Again, when I started, I had car plan. That's all we could get hold of, and the shit was like vinegar on walls, and you'd have this satin black that I can't remember the name of, but that was really thick. So you'd always outline in that. Do you fill with, this is what I was getting hold of. So we didn't have the caps then.
Right.
Even trying to make them, it was just no go because my stepmom wouldn't let me in the kitchen. So you used what you could get. Nowadays, it is a lot easier, and what you can do is just amazing. What you can do with a spray can, But it was more the content, not exactly. I mean, you had your drips and stuff, and even using stencils was a no go because other writers would brick your work if they saw you using a stencil. So it was very, it was a bit, I guess it was closed-minded, but still very, competitive.
So was it like, I don't know a lot about it, but was it the thing of was it kind of tagging where it's like get your tag as many places, or is it do the best thing you can in the time that you've got?
Yeah, all of it really. Yeah, I mean, it depends geographically where you are, and I was never really into heavy illegal stuff. I would find like there was a place in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk where there was a couple of derrick houses, so I would just practice there all the time. You just get left alone. I mean, you had to crawl under the fence or whatever to get in there, but you just get left alone. And about 6-7 years later, he got knocked down. I think they were left there because there was like a labyrinthian chalk mine underneath that ended up at the cathedral.
Wow.
And the houses were subsiding, so they all left them and we'd just left these shells that all the lads could paint on. So we just did that to hone your craft,
So what were the risks involved? Like, were they like the police like really heavy on it if you were doing it in the wrong places?
Yeah. I mean, I got nicked a couple of times, to be honest, But again, where the buildings were going to be knocked down, they confiscated my paint and let me go. I mean, I had a fine once, but they let me go another time, I had a good friend, Nikwe Dreff. He used to write Dreff. He was hardcore. So yeah, big shout to Nikwe, and he would trains, all that stuff. But I was never on that level really. I was more into the sort of. Yeah, it was always an ode to the New York style, but I was always trying to hone the craft more than get up. Yeah.
Something else I saw in your notes is you talked about an Australian magazine called Hype. I've never heard of that before. Can you sort of talk about what that was like? Yeah,
I mean, I used to pick those up at, there was a place just off of Canopy Street, and I used to go there around 87, where they'd sell the Goose Downs and all the import. George, who run 4-Star General, he used to go to New York because I think the dollar was, it was like $6 to £1 or something like that in like the early to mid 80s. So a lot of the lads would go there and come back with all these goose downs.
Was 4-Star General like the sort of hip hop spot then?
Yeah. I mean, for the South, for London, yeah. So I found Hype, the magazine, there. So and the Australians that I found out through that magazine, they were still, breaking, and the murals were insane, the pieces and stuff. So it was that connection. You all had the common interest, but it was across the world. I can't remember the price of it, or probably his stuff wasn't cheap because he knew he had all the gems there, so you had to pay for them sometimes. It was only when my American grandparents, and maybe it's a Jewish thing or something as well, they save up from when the kid is born to when they're 18. So I had a couple of grand when I went down to 4-Star and spent it all on bloody goose downs and what have you. My dad wasn't impressed with that.
Hip-hop.
Yeah, well then I got mugged. So if you're walking around with a fancy big jacket on, you're going to get started on. And that happened quite a few times. So I learned to hop fences well and run. It's not. This happened in Great Yarmouth in Norfolk twice, because the people would come down to the soul events in packs, and I was just strutting around with my Tough Crew t-shirt on and my headphones and a silly hat and this big pimp. Probably looked like a pimp coat. Obviously I'm a massive target for these lads that have come down for the soul weekenders. So of course I'm going to get started on, so that was annoying,
Kind of a rite of passage, I guess, isn't it?
Oh, it's not very nice, man. It's not, at knife point, there's 5 lads around. I'm fucking out of there, I'm gone.
Jesus. So when you went to uni in Portsmouth, had you wanted to go to London or anywhere else, but you could just get into Portsmouth, or did something else take you there? Yeah,
that's a good question. I won't dwell on it too far. My mate, he sadly died, and I was in the house when this happened. The next day, I was going to have an interview at a London art college, and I was in just bits. So I just didn't happen. So that didn't happen. Ended up in Portsmouth, So, but London was always, the spot to go. But you were getting goaded to sort of try, these places. But Portsmouth was cool.
Yeah. Was it fine art that you did?
No, it was illustration.
Oh, okay.
I went to Great Yarmouth. For some reason, I ended up on a graphic design course. But, I was really an illustrator artist, So I always, whatever subject they gave me, I'd try and twist it to more of an illustrative thing. But this was pre-digital as well, so you'd have to learn the old school way of doing letters and all this. So it wasn't really my thing. Yeah,
and like sci-fi illustration was a big thing for you early on, right?
Yeah, that was 2000 AD, the comics that I really got into. I put in the book as well. There was one time I sent in one of my little dodgy drawings. I was about 13, something like that, and strontium dog, and I got a winner of Earthlet Daniel Lish from Norfolk wins 10 quid and a video. I was chuffed, but the comics were they were great, and it was quite 2008. He was quite rebellious, against the grain, and it had that sci-fi sort of thing going on, the otherworldly thing. So it was right up my street, and it was cost 30p back then, so it was all right.
Yeah. So was that kind of style of illustration what you were kind of going more down the line of with uni? Because I mean, it influences your current work so much.
Yeah, and the art, and I don't know if this is like this with every art college, but they didn't like it at all. Right. They really didn't go for it. So I had to do it as a sideline, really. Back engineer my favourite artists, just copy what they were doing and figure out, and it was only till I left, I actually went to, that was the first time that I found a comic shop in Portsmouth that blew my mind, because I'd always be going to the newsagents on the corner, hope that they would have that weekly comic or whatever. So going to Mondo Comics in Portsmouth, that opened up my whole world, European styles, the American styles, which I wasn't too into. It was more Mobius and the French sort of layered style, I guess, that really which is, I guess, quite similar. That's what I just like doing, you know. Robert Crumb as well was quite a big influence.
Yeah.
Again, sort of crafted line work to sort of explain the shape. You know, the lines would follow the shape. And if it's a freestyle thing, it's easy to sort of remember where the shadows go, because I always, as a default, the light is coming from the top down, so you know where the shadows drop. So if it is freestyle, I know where things are going, as I use that as a default, you know, light up the top.
Yeah. So what was next after uni?
I was homeless for a little while. More family trouble and just being skint. So I was squatting.
Is that as in you didn't have a home to go to after uni because of circumstances?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I just stayed in Portsmouth. I had my records. You know, I set up, even though the front door was hanging off, my records were stashed well. So, you know, a couple of years were quite difficult. After, you know, the college years. That was a college before it was a uni. You know, so back in my time, it was just a college. And then I used to go to the comic conventions up in London, just to try and get work. You know, they would send you test scripts to do, and you try them out. So that was really good, and ended up working for this pet book company, doing bunny rabbits and kittens and stuff like that. So yeah.
How long? So if you had one of those scripts and you had to like mock stuff up, like how long would it take to do that for a tentative sort of thing? Because I think we like to kind of, particularly now with AI and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, just do my CV, you know, shape it for this job, or you know, people like to not spend too much time on that. Was it quite time consuming?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but you just, well, I've got a very sort of quite a heavy work ethic, so once I get stuck into something, that tunnel vision overtakes, and you know, so I wasn't really aware of how much time it was taking. I suppose like a test script, they want you to do sort of 6 to 8 pages, so it'd be a week or so, or maybe a bit longer.
That's intense for like an application for a job, basically, isn't it?
It's because of Dan Willett, my mate who did own Mondo Comics. He put this thing in my head that the American artists do a page a day. So I worked my arse off to try and keep to that, doing 1 page a day. It's just bonkers. You don't need to do that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got very tight deadlines, and that was in the heyday, the golden age of comics, when they, you know, it was just, they were just coming off the shelves, and you could be a superstar, you know, doing your comic book stuff. It's not really like that now. It's just a completely different landscape, you know. But yeah, to answer your question, it was a week or so.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So when did you get into the video game stuff? Because you were concept artist for video games, right?
Yeah. That I just fell into that because shout out to David Nottingham, who's a good friend. He's been in the industry for like, you know, over 3 decades or something. But it was because of him. I was working at Barnes and Noble on Fifth Avenue as a book designer when I first got to the States, and he worked downtown for this game company called Rockstar Games. I didn't know who that was, and he said, do you want to do some concepts for me as a freelance gig? And I went, yeah, okay, what is that? So I really fell into it, you know, and I enjoyed the ride for 25 years, you know.
Was it Rockstar for all that time?
No, that was I was under Take Two, the whole umbrella, you know, they're under the Take Two umbrella. I was with Gotham Games, they merged with Rockstar Games, and then about a year later I got the boot anyway, because it was like working in a Thai sweatshop. It was pretty full on. My
mate's brother works for him, and I think it's still like that.
Is he Rockstar North or in America?
He's up north.
This was Houston and Broadway or something where the mate, and it was just, but you get people like, you know, and Eminem, I couldn't say it then, and Dre just wander through the studio because they want to chat to the bosses. They've got an idea for the next GTA 3. They've got a bit of music. So this was like a continual. This is like happened all the time. It was
Crazy.
mad, yeah.
Let's just wind back a bit then, because like a big thing that I want to get into is your, I guess you'd call it, pilgrimage of moving to New York to embrace yourself in the culture. So can you talk about how you ended up doing that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't really a specific pilgrimage because, like I said, my dad was from there, and he's always said, you know, when you're 18, you can go out there. You know, I had to go to the American embassy and put my hand on my heart and, you know, do all that stuff to get the passport. So again, I said I went out there in 77, was very young, and it was a long time before I went out there again. I was in my late 20s, and by then, you know, I really knew what I wanted to do. You're sort of old enough, mature enough to, right, I got anyway just to slip into the system, be a bloody pot washer or something. But I ended up being the designer thing, and after about 6 months of going to New York, it wasn't a specific pilgrimage. It was just part of what was going to happen. But I felt I stayed in Portsmouth for a bit too long. I should have pulled my thumb out, as my dad says, and got my arse out to there a bit earlier. Or as a country boy, you know, people should have said, how about London first, then go to New York? But I didn't. I mean, for the first 6 months, I wore earplugs because it was so loud. I couldn't adjust. So, and it was quite lonely the first year. My wife-to-be came out a year later. We got married on Staten Island, which was really sweet. She's from Portsmouth girl. But it was. I just took it day by day, you know, because it was a big move. I eventually got settled down. You know, I was on Staten Island for a little while. There's a Wu-Tang shop down the hill, which was it was always empty though, next to a curried goat place. And but yeah, you go down in there for your Wu-Tang mugs or whatever. But yeah, this is 99, you know, so it's still early-ish days. Wife came out, tied the knot. No, you know, towers came down.
Yeah.
A couple of months after we tied the knot, so that $1 million view that we had from St George's, where you get the Staten Island ferry to Manhattan, we were right on top of the hill, so we Statue of Liberty there, Twin Towers there, you know, all the bridges, Verrazano and Brooklyn Bridge, and that. You know, it just got turned to shit, man. It was so depressing. So I was in a crew. Sorry, I'm just jumping all over the place. Before my wife came out, and she had to go through all the green card process because I didn't have to do it. I'm already a citizen. Before that, I was just going to Hunts Point. They had jams there, block parties, you know, South Bronx, Brooklyn, just hooking up with people and bouncing around again. I used to go to the Miami B-boy Pro-Ams with break DJ Lacey, and we were really good mates, and he was the number one DJ. He's from Bishop Stortford, but they used to fly him out to Miami. His brother Aidan, shout out to Aidan, he does the Back At Ya records, you know, that he does brilliant re-releases of super rare 45s and all that. That's his brother. So I used to go out there, just make the contacts, and I met up with Spike from Zulu Nation at the time, and he was some of my first contacts. So I had my cousins out there, so I could live okay, you know, get into the system and just meet people, and got into crews, B-boy crews and graph crews and all that.
Yeah.
You know?
So with hip hop culture, b-boying, there's a lot of like posturing, puffed out chests and things like that. How do you turn up there and go, all right, I'm Daniel, can I break?
No, yeah.
Like, how do you like get in with them and get their buy-in, if you like?
That's where you have to show and prove, you know. If there's a little cipher, and you do have to be quite brave, you just got to get in there and do your business, you know, as best you can. But I think it was, and with the DJing, because I'd been doing the pirate radio for about 9-10 years before America. So I mean, I knew what I was doing, and I eventually got all my wax out there, doing block parties, and used to do this dollar jam with King Up Rock as well in Queens. It was on the border of Queens and Brooklyn, so all the crews. Yeah, you had Special K from the Treacherous Free, just hang out. All these people, they were real, part of the architects of hip hop. It was even the gangs that started some of the dances, like there's rockin', Brooklyn Rock, or whatever you want to call it. It gets a bit political, but a lot of these gangs, like the Devil's Rebels, they would turn up all with their colours on, form an Apache line, just start rocking, back and forth, and you can't help it. You just got to get involved, like the record says, And I always had that ethos. You just step up, and I entered battles. I was so nervous. I just stiff as a flipping plank. I didn't do very well, but the relief of just having done it, and like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's over. I wasn't very good at battling, to be honest. I'd get too nervous,
Yeah, I remember doing my first couple of DJ battles and just being so scared.
Oh,
and it's
man.
like,
what, your hand like that on the needle?
Oh yeah. It's like, what's the worst thing that happens?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's all up here, isn't
You
it?
play a couple of records and things clash a bit. It's not the end of the world,
Yeah.
but for you in that time, it's just the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. Well, I thought, lad from England out there, just get stuck in, and I think it did bring out not a particularly nice side of me, if I'm quite honest. It was that angry.
Did you overstep the mark with people?
Oh yeah.
Well, I remember years ago when I was kind of doing battling stuff, because there was the Trinity Warriors, wasn't there? And I'm sure they got like kicked out of a competition or disqualified or something for like fighting. Yeah. It's a weird thing. It escalates quite a lot, I think, with dance.
Yeah. And and being in crews as well, you'd get caught up in their drama. Yo, fuck that, and you'd like, ugh. And before you know it, you're just like, well, what am I doing in here? What is this situation I'm in all of a sudden? And it was really, being an outsider, it's all, you can be a bit pompous, well, a bit immature, isn't it? But it's in the blood, You had my mate, who's a brilliant dancer, his mum teaching him windmills in the kitchen. But he had so much flavour. I used to practice in Westchester Square in the Bronx. That was a pilgrimage from Staten Island all the way uptown after work, working on Fifth Avenue, and then all the way back down to the ferry port. If you missed your ferry, you'd have to wait 2 hours for the next ferry. That was the pilgrimage there, just practicing in the Bronx. But yeah, shout to is Ready to Rock. They were the crew that were practicing there all the time, and so all these little you just had to get stuck in. You had to do it, man. You just couldn't stand on the sidelines.
Yeah. And what was your journey in terms of like graph writing when you were over there?
I wanted to sort of go in because I got friendly with Lady Pink and I can't remember her boyfriend at the time, but we were going to go through the tunnels. As you saw on Star Wars and all these documentaries, just for the history, but it never got around to it. But I used to hang out with a lot of the early old school writers, like Stay High and Roger and all these guys that, and OUI as well. He was supposedly white boy hippie writer from Jamaica, Queens, that made, he was very good at bombing. So I used to hang out with all these old guys and just listen to their stories. And so I was active, but it was mainly beat digging, dancing, where I learnt to like Brooklyn rock properly, and battle, winning some battles and stuff like that. That was mainly, I think it was from childhood where hip-hop moves so quick. Before you know it, no one's really spinning on their head anymore. New dance styles happened. So I think going to New York, I got a lot of that off my chest, which is a bit... Because I absolutely love the art form of it. It's an art form. I really wanted to become part of that. And not really make a name for myself, not as an ego thing, but just to battle and have that experience, even if I didn't do very well. So it was mainly, yes, it was still the dance and the music. Yeah. So the graffiti, I was still bubbling with it, but not hardcore. You know, it wasn't big burners and huge production pieces. It was just helping out the old guys that...
Right.
They were at such an early start of graffiti. They didn't really evolve from the tag or the bubble letter. They just... So I used to get in and fill in for them or do a little character. And so, because it was an honour, you know, that before they shut down 5 Points in Astoria, Queens, it's a huge warehouse, a bakery inside or something. You know, it was covered in graph, you know, and they had old time conventions there. Danny Dan, the beat man, would be playing. His vinyl would get so hot in the sun it would be like a banana, but he'd still play his records somehow. And all these old guys would turn up, and it was just like, wow, this is brilliant. I'll just be very quiet and humble and just listen to the stories and help them out. Yeah, it was lovely.
So, and then all of a sudden you came back to England. What was it like leaving all that culture that you were so immersed in?
It was time, I think. You know, there was a couple of tragedies. You know, my mate Jim, DJ Lacey, got hit by a car out running. So that happened. My wife's sister tragically got murdered in Manchester. Yeah, big. It was just serious, and we were so out of the loop, and the family was struggling with stuff there. We thought in a couple of years' time we'll have to go back, and I was quite happy with that.
Yeah.
You know, originally I thought I'd be out there for 15, 20 years or more, and it was only really sort of 7 odd years, you know. But we felt comfortable to come back around that time, you know. So there was no regrets or anything. It was and it was a sort of release, getting away from some of the drama that I'd gotten myself into. You know, through that battle mentality, very egoic and on the front line all the time, and it was bloody draining. You know, it's just you've only got so much light units for the day, haven't you? And mine were very, very low. Yeah. So yeah, I'd got myself into it myself. You know, no one's to blame apart from myself. But it's a learning experience.
I think from what I remember in the book, you'd sown some seeds over there with making some of the connections that then kind of led on to more of the work that you've had in hip hop and illustration and stuff.
Not really. Afterwards. I was on the grassroots level. I was hanging out with rockers and old B-boys.
Oh, okay.
You know, I never had the chance to go to D&D studios or something, or it wasn't on a priority list really, because I was still at the foundational, you know, digging if there was a spot wherever in someone's basement and there was some wax there, we'd go there, and then, you know, if there was the right music and it worked, we'd play that at the dollar jams or whatever battles there were. So it was still very grassroots, and I think I intentionally kept it like that, because by the time I got out there, everyone and their grandmother was rhyming, and I would start to get sick to death of it really. You know, you're completely surrounded by it, and I just wanted to keep it, you know, just hear these beautiful stories from the guys that were 10, 15 years older than me. So I just kept it to the dancing, music.
Right.
And, you know, the ego strip stuff, it was still in the same ballpark, but completely different really, because it was dealing with musical influences that I maybe had left behind in England, first getting into hip hop and rap, you know. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that project and how it came around, and I guess like the sort of what event led to the next?
it happens. I mean, trying to re-establish yourself as an artist and just to get work, it was quite tough coming back. And thankfully, I had the video game stuff to do as a concept artist to bring home the bread. My wife was pregnant, for our first child, so financially things are tough, and it wasn't time to delve into the hip hop thing, as an art piece or an ode to. And it happened quite organically, and it was from my mate Jim's album cover. I did Breaksploitation 1, and it was around the same time as Charlie Ahern. Was it Charlie Ahern? The Yes Yes Y'all book that came out that was quite influential, because I'd never seen that amount of old school pictures in one sort of book before. And we thought it's collaboratively. We thought of the block party piece, like a fly on the wall, DJ cutting up a couple of records, back in the day, sort of like 77, 78, getting the fashions right, really nerding out, I put about 7 or 8 classic sort of breaks in the crates, just redoing the covers and all this stuff, and that went around the world really. It was got bootlegged all over the bloody place, used for mixtapes and whatever. And so from that, Rakim and Pete Rock and people like that were just saying, check this out, it's all about the streets and keeping it this and that, and just remember the roots of it, basically, the foundation. So and Paradise Grey from X-Clan reached out as well, because he was involved with a hip-hop museum, I think it was in Harlem or something. He wanted prints of it, and so I did little drawings of them as a thank you, and it just, hey, what's going on here? Something's happening, it was going really well. And the reception, as a struggling artist, if you get a bit of a positive feedback from people, you're like, okay, I'm onto a good thing here. So I just went with it. So I would be drawing these things on the train from Brighton to London. When I was saying earlier, I worked in Shoreditch for another video game company, and within that hour, I would just be drawing away. It was freestyle, the original pieces that I did, and they were only A5, which I can't remember the inches, but it's probably like 6.5 inches by 4.5 or so. It's quite small, and it's very easily portable. So I'd start off, well, okay, if I did Rakim, and I wanted to again shed that egoic thing and treat the human creative journey, that was more of a priority, I think, than doing what I used to do in New York or before that, always an ode to New York, b-boy stance, hardcore letters, this and that, and it was just, again, it was tiring. So having that fresh perspective and really treating the subject matter as a vessel, like a conduit for consciousness to come out either through the pen or microphone or DJ or beat making or whatever. So from Rakim, Pete Rock and Paradise, then it went to Cool Keef, Bambata, before we found out the the stories and all this lot. And it went on and on and on, and I was really enjoying my commutes. And who enjoys a commute? You know what I mean? So you get, instead of staring at your phone, you just start getting busy, and it was lovely. It was really nice.
Was it a time where you kind of, all your different influences and things just kind of clicked into place in one way? Because you've got the sort of sci-fi influence in some of the little characters and stuff like that you include and stuff, and some of your other interests.
That's a good question. I mean, it was more subconscious, really, and because I was going around down lots of conspiratorial, as you would say, rabbit holes about the nature of our reality, that fed into it as well. And you have an ink pen, and you're trying to suggests frequencies, or a certain frequency which you love about that track in line. So all these challenges, this was the the process, the joy of the process and the exploration within that 1 or 2 hours commute. And if I really, if it wasn't complete, I would finish it off, next to my wife in the bed or something. That definitely happened when I increased the page size, because when I started doing crews, like I think the first one was ultramagnetic MCs, and I thought, well, I've got to get bigger than A5, so I think it went to A3 or A4. Eventually went to A3 size, and the games company that I work for, they're very it was so kind of them, maybe because they're Brazilian or whatever, I don't know, they're very open-minded. They said, get to work at 11 o'clock so you don't have to pay that outrageous 52 quid every morning to get to bloody London, on a rat race. And so all these things really helped. I wasn't
Is that the ones that were letting you kind of do a load of upskilling and stuff with your sort of passion pieces?
What do you mean upskilling?
So you mentioned that they were letting you like train in doing certain stuff, I think maybe in Photoshop, which it wasn't necessarily the day job, but because you were like kind of training yourself.
No, that was the pet book company.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That was the very early 90s. So I learned Photoshop and Quark Express, where you learn, no one uses Quark Express anymore. And the drum scanner was the size of this couch, the scanner. It was just bonkers. But that's how early it was. That's when I learned Photoshop. So talking of Photoshop, I only know probably about 10 to 15% of the whole program.
You said 25 in the book.
Did I?
Yeah.
It's probably less than that. Did I? All right.
That was one of my notes, because I think it's interesting with stuff like that, because you think about tech and what it can do versus what your output is, and I find that interesting because you'll get people that still produce music with like Octamed on the Amiga or whatever, and it's kind of, it's the gear versus the idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I was quite surprised that with what you do that you don't use Illustrator. I mean, I'm not deep into these things, so I don't know. I just kind of assumed you'd be using that. But
No.
Are you using the same techniques that you've always used within Photoshop?
I mean, working with other companies, you get little shortcut tidbits and stuff like that. So and I work on a big sort of like Wacom screen, which the process isn't as good as the tactile nature of pen and paper, because you create more neural pathways that way, I would say, a lot more than just straight digital.
And you mentioned certain things about types of paper in the book as well.
Yeah, and eventually my hand, because of the paper and the tooth, and I just overworked my hand. I've got this horrible ganglion cyst, this big lump that happened on my hand, and I had to stick my hand in boiling water and freezing cold. It was really, and just because I'd been holding my pen too tight and overworked myself. So transitioning over to the Wacom tablet is a bit easier, because it's like drawing on glass, so you haven't got that tooth. I'm not going to overwork my hand, but again, I miss the process of the traditional method, which I do go back and forth on, but with a lot of commercial work, it's more on the Wacom, because it's just smooth, and and it's there's a lot of good shortcuts and stuff like that.
Yeah. With drawing, one of my mates has just decided he wants to train up as a tattoo artist. So he's learning a lot about drawing. Like, he's from an art background, but he's just got a book about drawing from the right brain, because I think the left and right brain stuff's quite interesting. How the left's more the sort of analytical and the right's more the sort of felt sort of stuff. Do you think you lead one way versus the other with your stuff? Like, are you consciously doing things to pull out, right, I need to do this because this reflects this person's personality?
Yeah, you're right. It's a good question. It's a mixture. You have a foundation of or a basic plan in your head, and I'll thumbnail it out. That started to happen. The first sort of, 15 or 20 or whatever I said in my book, was she going to
25%?
Yeah. That was very much freestyle, just seeing what happened, and I'd have to redo the drawing several times sometimes, because one slip, if the eyeball's down, or
Yeah, I know
moves.
with Rakim you say his hand's too big.
His hand's too big. I did Q-Tip so many times because he's got very and Nas, because they got very sort of good looking but small features, sort of quite boyish, and so they're very difficult to do. Someone like Jay-Z or Grandmaster Flash is easier, or KRS, because they've got larger features, more pronounced features, bone structure. But Q-Tip and Nas especially, they've got very subtle features, and it's very hard to do, man. It's especially why am I just trying to do this freestyle, and it's so I had to do it several times a lot of the time, or if something went wrong I'd do it on the other page and literally cut it out, stick it on. And some of these pieces, you know, when Sotheby's picked, you know, they picked about 12 pieces to sell in the auction thing for that hip hop Sotheby's gig, and a lot of them were just like, are you sure you want this piece? Because, you know, Chuck D's head, I didn't do very well on it, so I redid it, glued it over the top, and they went, yeah, that's fine. It's the whole journey of the piece. It had my daughter's bit of pastel had fallen on the top corner, and it was really manky. I'm stuffing the pieces in my bag as well. They're dog-ended at corners, and that, but they love it because that's the whole journey.
Yeah. So how did that happen? So basically, you had pieces auctioned through Sotheby's.
Yeah.
And not only that, this was put together by Monica Lynch, who's probably one of the most important women in hip hop.
I know, yeah, it's brilliant.
You know, like, how
Talking
did that
to her
happen?
is so cool. Because I heard her on the Grown Man rap show, you know, with Paul Nice and his mate, I can't remember, DJ Toast. So I was a fan of that. I'd listen to it while I'd be doing the drawings, and Monica was on there, and she just got in contact with me. Just, you know, I think it was through Instagram, but we started back and forth. And she's so down to earth, and she's great, you know. And she's like the Don.
Yeah. Was it Def Jam she was at?
Tommy Boy.
Sorry.
Yeah. And she was on Questlove's. I can't remember his the show he did, but that was great as well. He used to interview him, so he used to love any Latin Quarter stories, didn't he? So yeah, but yeah, it was brilliant. So from that, I had to send out J Period as well. Helped me out, you know, with that as well. Just like the logistics of getting artwork, or if I couldn't, you know, I can't. They wanted like over $1,500 or something like that to ship them all back. I just couldn't afford it, so, you know, thankfully Jay helped me out going there, and at the time him being on Staten Island, so he'd ship them back for me, you know.
Yeah.
Like 70 quid.
Yeah. So what would you say, because you've gone on to work with a lot of different rappers, and it's a load of work that are in the two books that we've got here for sale, particularly with the free poster if you buy a book as well. What are the sort of 2 or 3 collaborations that you've done that really kind of mean the most to you or stand out? And if so, could you talk about how they've come around?
Well, I mean, quite surprisingly, one of my favourite ones is the Dilla Soul, a mixtape that Jay did. You know, he put in Poss and, you know, the De La Soul's lyrics over Dilla beats, but that was really just a beautiful, the way it all came about, and it was very smooth and organic process again. These projects I favour over the middleman manager getting, you know.
So this is like
I can't really name specifics, but some experiences were quite tricky because the manager really was an arsehole and difficult to work with, the middleman, but thankfully it didn't. But I did the job, you know, and it was fine. But the ones that don't include the managers usually for me seem to be the smoothest, you know, dealing with the artist, not exactly one-on-one, but, you know, just a nice free flow, phone calls back and forth, ideas, and, you know, so Raekwon was really cool for many years.
So did you deal directly with him then?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, which was cool, and it made me that much conscious of my accent, because you're talking with him directly, and he sounds obviously exactly like he does on Wax, and I just started getting really self-conscious all the time. But eventually, after 6 months, I was a bit more relaxed. But because he's just such a character,
It's very cool.
Yeah, but there's no surprises because you feel you know him quite well, and maybe he plays that role when he's in front of his fans as well, or whoever's we're dealing with. But he's quite laid back, and we used to just bounce ideas. And if I didn't understand where he was coming from, or vice versa, we'd work it out.
Yeah.
Who else comes to mind? I'm working with Mixmaster Mike was really cool, and we were trying to do these NFT things that didn't really work out, but there was a lot of back and forth meetings and all this stuff at Mixmaster Mike and Bootsy Collins. We did one as well, but I think his wife's his manager, so I had to deal with his missus, but that was fine. It was really, really smooth. There's quite a few, but right now I'm flatlining. There's mainly De La and Raekwon are the ones. Great projects, went smoothly,
Yeah, and can we talk about the new project that's coming up?
It's been announced. Yeah, a couple of days ago. So I'll be illustrating Stevie Wonder book, which is brilliant.
That's serious.
Yeah, it's great. I've got Derek Barnes. He's award-winning author from Brooklyn. So he's done the manuscript, and I've just got to pull my finger out and start doing it now because I've got quite a long time to do it. Deadline is July, but yeah, it's great. And I've always depended and sorted my girls out through the video game stuff, all the work that I've been doing there. But like I say, the whole industry is having a bit of a wobble. Thankfully, this has turned up. It might open new doors for more editorial, things, more books, which I've always loved. I've always just loved a good book.
Yeah, it's got to be a buzz to get the call from Stevie Wonder.
I haven't had a call from Stevie Wonder.
His people.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of people involved. The bigger it's for Norton, so the bigger the publisher, the more chefs you have to deal with. It's like working for Lucas Games. I work for Lucas a little bit in the fringes, and man, you got to go through so many layers of people.
Is it hard with something like that to know when you can actually kind of celebrate? Because you're like, there's any type, like, is there a point where you're like, this is definitely happening now? Amazing.
This took about a year. This took a really long time. It took about a year to sort out, and I just had to be patient. I couldn't bug them. Maybe it's a cultural thing, but if every couple of weeks, what's going on? I wouldn't hear anything. So I don't know if that's really an American thing to do that, but I was just kept on tenterhooks for really a good year. But I'll be starting that in the next couple of weeks, which will be great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's us covered. Has anyone got any questions?
Just about the Stevie Wonder book.
Yeah.
Do you want to take the microphone? What's your name, sir?
Hello, everyone. I'm known as Hudson or Alex. Just about the Stevie Wonder book. That's it here. I can only think of 2 books about Stevie Wonder, which I think is incredible, considering he's basically a legend. Yeah. Do you know what the book's actually going to be about? Is it like a biography?
Yes.
Or?
No. It is Derek Barnes. It's like a love letter in a sort of poem, an eloquent poem of his 3 or 4 classic albums that he did in the 70s. Songs in a Key of Life and Inner Visions and so forth. And it's his meandering style of I don't want to give too much away, or I don't want to, but it's really well written, and I have to take visual clues from certain things that he's accented in the sort of. It's not really a poem. What's that style of poem where it rhymes on every? You know what I mean? It's not like that. I can't think of because I'm not a writer, but I just have to take cues from that, and I know there'll be a lot of backwards and forwards with. the publishers, the art director, and Derek as well. So I don't want to pre-think any problems or whatever, but like I say, the more chefs there are, the more I'd rather have one conduit of direction. So hopefully that'll achieve. But yeah, to answer your question as well, it's maybe a 32 page, so it'll be like 15, 16 double page spreads possibly, and he's known as like a children's author, but it's not really a children's book. It's more of a fan book, and I can leave the visual little Easter eggs for maybe the children, because it's multi-generational, isn't it? You could have children, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, or whatever, still being. So hopefully, it'll all make sense.
Absolutely.
I've only done a test spread and they loved it, but the direction changed very slightly, but it's still within those 3 or 4 classic albums.
Incredible.
Yeah, all called Wonder Love.
Amazing, after his band.
Yeah.
Incredible. Looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Young lady, microphone.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh God. Right. I can't even remember your name, but your story has been incredible.
Thank you.
And it's really sparked something in myself.
Yeah.
It was. I'll chat to you after about the conspiratorial context maybe. Would you
going down rabbit holes.
Yes,
yeah.
I absolutely love that stuff.
Yeah.
Did that at university myself, but it was incredible hearing your story, and
Thank you.
good luck with everything. And yeah, do you feel like you're from childhood up until now is like with the Stevie Wonder, was it stuff?
Yeah.
Not like this is the end goal, but to follow on from Hudson is like, do you feel like you what's the expression, like you're getting
The maximum achievement?
Yes, yeah, and there's still obviously more and more. To come,
I don't. To be honest, I think I'm very grateful for it, and I really want to do my best.
In a non-egotistical way for yourself, but you're getting the credit you deserve now.
Yeah,
I
hope
so. Throughout the years.
Well, it's still a struggle. It's a real struggle, because I'm the main. I'm not the only, because Karen works hard as my wife as well.
Lovely.
But she's in university at the moment, so it's still on me to bring home the bacon.
Yeah.
And the last year's been really tough for a lot of artists and a lot of industries. So everyone's feeling the pinch, So it seems like, wow, this is it, mic drop. It's not. It's like, okay. After July, the deadline, I've still got to look for more work.
Yeah, it comes in ebbs and flows.
It does. It really does. It is still difficult.
Yeah,
it's still difficult. It's not just like, I sit back and it all comes to me. You really got to work your arse off.
Yeah, really enjoyed listening to you, and thank you for
thanks a lot. Thank you.
Growing up in London, been inspired at the age of 12 by the likes of Arthur Dodger. I've not thought that name for years. And Scribbler and Fume and people like that, hanging out at West Way and Covent Garden and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you feel that the London graffiti scene kind of compared to the New York scene when you went over there?
See, I'm not a Londoner, so I couldn't really. I was very
You must
inspired.
have known those artists. You must have known.
Yeah. I was very inspired by. It was obviously the Chrome Angels were the dons at the time, Artful Dodger and these people, and there was a lot of the names. I forget the names now. There was meant to be a Futura 2000 tag was it Westbourne Park when he was touring with the Clash. It was all a massive influence. Like I say, with the hype magazines for Australia, that was huge as well. You had Locus, and when Mode split up from the Chrome Angels, moved to France. A lot of the French writers, but New York obviously is the foundation. But it seemed like the Europeans at that time were taking it somewhere different, which was really interesting as well. Not just based on the letter form, being a more of a illustrator type. I was always into the characters, so I could see the Europeans were pushing it at that time to different places.
It must be quite hard being in Suffolk, Norfolk, and being connected to that metropolis kind of.
No, not really.
Culture.
No. it was a platform at the time, unbeknownst to me, that I could express myself and feel cool and have self-love and a bit of worth, because I won't get into details, but I didn't really feel that much before, parents splitting up, being pushed here and there to different families or what have you. So my friends, I got very close to my friends. It was like brotherhood when you had your crews and you're all dancing together for 8 to 12 hours a day, skinny as a rake, not eating properly, scrumping for apples or nicking a pint of milk, or just being little bastards. But it was so there was a camaraderie and a brotherhood there. If the family was fractured, I mean, I can only really comfortably talk about it, decades after, because I couldn't formulate it into a cohesive way. It was just too jumbled up. So that hip hop thing that gave me the platform, and it's probably quite a common story, especially for a lot of families, over the world that are fatherless. You will have that connection with, the deeper sort of connection, brotherhood, music, dance. It runs quite deep. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Well, yeah, I think that gets us to the end. So, any final words, Dan?
No, not really. I mean,
well, we've been through a lot
any
anyway,
creatives, just keep on expressing yourself and enjoy the process. And that's about all I can say. I'm sort of flatlining a little bit. Shout outs, really, J Period and Oxygen, Poss out of De La Soul, Aiden from Back At Your Records, my wife Karen, and my daughters Abigail and Elsa.
Lovely.
I can't really think of anything else, but thanks ever so much for having me.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming to Derby. Colin, thanks for
and thanks for Colin as well. Yeah, for putting my books out.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate.
Dan Lish.
Thank you.
That was nice.